welcome back to another video. Today I'm working in my sketchbook again, and I wanted to record the process in real time versus the time-lapse style that I usually do. Just like last time, I'm not focusing on anything in particular, just kind of filling up a spread in my sketchbook and seeing what happens. Today I guess I felt like filling up a whole page with yellow gouache, so yeah, that's where we're starting. Today I wanted to talk about sketchbooks specifically and some tips for how to keep them in general. Disclaimer that there's no one or even a few right ways to use a sketchbook. Literally, any way that you use a sketchbook is probably going to be the right way to use a sketchbook for you, but these are just some tips that I've personally found helpful to keep myself motivated to continue working in my sketchbook or to face each blank page with a little bit more confidence. I personally think it's important for any visual artist to keep a sketchbook to some extent. I think sketchbooks are kind of like journals. They document our art journey and show our progression and improvement over time in a very personal and unique way, and they're reflective of who we are as a creative individual, and they reflect our unique experiences, feelings, and ways of interpreting the world around us. The sheer potential of the blank page can be so motivating, but more often can be a little intimidating. So for that reason, it's always good to remember that sketchbooks at the end of the day are tools to be used for whatever we need them for, whether that's specifically only for ref practice or to practice one medium only, a place to keep our finished pieces, or a mix of everything. You can have one master sketchbook that holds everything, or you could even keep a few sketchbooks at the same time for different purposes if that works best for you. Like I mentioned earlier, the great thing is there's no hard and fast rules for how to keep your sketchbook. And I don't think anyone searching how to keep a sketchbook would expect to find someone claiming such. Rather, at least in my own experience, I seek out videos like this more so for inspiration and tips from other people's experiences, which can be used as sort of a jumping off point to sort of help me get a few new ideas for how to use mine, or motivation for what to put on my next blank page. So today I wanted to share a few things that I've personally learned over the years of semi-regular sketchbooking that have helped me to always kind of keep the habit alive, more or less, and hopefully it might be helpful to you too. My first tip is something I sort of mentioned already, and it's to view it as a journal. This, in my opinion, is the number one key piece of advice that honestly helped me the most. As soon as I started viewing my sketchbooks the way I would view a journal, that was the key motivating factor that really helped me and made it way easier to want to use my sketchbooks more often and on a regular basis whenever possible. The reason this helped me so much, I'm actually a very avid journaler. As of recording this video, I've actually been writing in a daily private journal consecutively for over 2,290 days with not a single day missed between today and the day I started. I filled up 4 books so far, and I'm actually about to finish my 5th one and start my 6th one soon. That's actually going to be a topic of a possible future video, how I was able to journal for that long and that consistently. But the point is, since I personally already had that habit established, it was really easy for me to start looking at my sketchbooks differently once I heard someone compare them to journals for our art. Shifting my mindset in that way really motivated me to want to work in my sketchbook more often so that I could more clearly see that progression, and it helped me to also be at peace with how my art looks the way it does right now, even when I'm not always the proudest of it, because I know that it's gonna get better soon, hopefully, or it might even change soon, and if my art style changes, how else am I gonna really see that as clearly if I can't see where I've been before? Constant breaks in drawing can kind of muddy your progress, so it's important to practice consistently. Whatever that looks like is best for you. Whether that's daily, weekly, every other week, whatever you can do. You don't have to make it a daily routine, but just a regular, consistent one, again, whatever that looks like for you, is going to help you the most in the long run. That goes into number 2, which is to use your sketchbook to keep exercising that muscle memory of drawing, and yeah, that drawing muscle. Like anything else, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. With art, you might not necessarily forget how to draw, but it might make your skills stagnant for a while if you're not drawing for a while. This is how I feel like I personally hindered my own art. I feel like in years past, I wasn't as consistent as I should have been, and because of that, my art is the way it is now. I don't hate my art the way it is now, but sometimes I'll look back in old sketchbooks from when I was in high school or even in my early 20s, and I'm just like, what are we doing here? How is this going to help us improve? I don't know. I feel like I was just messing around for the most time. I don't know. I don't really have any regrets. It was fun. All of my art making journey was fun. But sometimes I just feel like if I really just hunkered down and studied more, my art would be way better today. But it is what it is. Anyway, that's not the point of the tip. The point of the tip is basically just to keep a consistent habit. Consistent drawing and intentional practice is going to improve your skills a lot faster than you might think. It'll make you more comfortable creating art, and it might bring new ideas to you too. That's another thing. You shouldn't always wait for inspiration. Sometimes you just need to draw without any inspiration, and then ideas will come to you naturally in time. If we just waited till we always had inspiration to draw, then probably none of us would draw as often as we might like to. So keeping the habit alive is the most important thing. The third tip for how to keep your sketchbook is to use it to expand your mental library through studies. There's lots of things we can't draw, but we just can't draw them until we can. Once you build a foundational understanding how to learn to draw new things, honestly, you can pretty much unlock the skill to draw anything you want if you put the effort in to study and learn it, which is pretty cool. Imagine that power. We artists hold an insane amount of power, and we can create whole characters and worlds and portraits and scenes and stories, and the limit is your imagination. So fill that imagination with a mental library full of different poses and compositions, colors, character design ideas, animals, plants, objects, different vehicles, technology, bugs, outfits, textures, patterns, monsters, creatures, foods, hands, lots of things. You'll be so powerful knowing how to draw lots of things, but use that power wisely. Don't use your powers to be hurtful or hateful. The fourth tip is to use your sketchbook as a means to experiment with different mediums. You can find out which mediums you like, which ones you don't, what fits best with your style, what's more intuitive for you to use or matches best with your style of art making. This is especially important before we make finished pieces. It's a good idea to test out an art supply before you make a finished piece to get familiar with how it works and how to handle it, how it interacts with other art supplies, and how it can be used to its fullest potential and be the most useful to you in your pieces in practice. The fifth tip is to never rip out a page, to cover up your mistakes instead with, all sorts of things, post-its, scrapbooking, washi tape, other drawings. Do what you need to do in order to protect your motive to keep going. If one or two particular pages are seriously hindering your motivation to keep going in your sketchbook, and more time passes and you still feel that, by all means, do what you need to do. If you have to tear them out, do it, but view ripping out a page as a complete last resort if it absolutely can't be saved. Because before then, it should be viewed as an opportunity to look at it like the page you don't like and think of an alternative way you can save it. And by doing so, you might even be able to create something with more visual interest to your spreads. So yeah, don't be too perfectionist with it. Does it look ugly? Then just make more ugly art. Who cares? Paint over things, overlap sketches, make more bad art. Who cares? What matters is your drawing. Let yourself draw. Number 6, don't feel pressured or rushed to fill the sketchbook. Especially with the popularity of sketchbook tours here on YouTube, we can sometimes feel this compulsion to just fill our books as quickly as possible, with no regard to the content inside it, just to get the book filled. I'm not saying a good sketchbook always has to take years to complete or something, but filling the book itself probably shouldn't be your main objective. I feel like that kind of mindset could hinder your art and keep you from progressing organically. However, I do understand that sometimes when it's taking longer than you'd like because of any reason, procrastination, life getting in the way, or if you have other sketchbooks you'd love to hurry up and start being able to use. In that instance, I found it's helpful to sit down, count the amount of pages left in your current book, find a realistic date of completion that doesn't rush you too much, and then just patiently work in your current sketchbook to the best of your ability for however many pages each day until you finally complete the book by your set date. It's a good way to reinforce it as a daily habit in your life too, and it gives that respect to your current book that you're working in because you were probably just as excited to start that one, so don't let that excitement burn out too quickly. Remember the excitement when you first started the book you're working in now, and then hopefully that should help you continue to be motivated to finish it all the way through. And the last tip I have here is to not feel pressured to share your sketchbook with others. Similarly to journals, my daily journals are so private, lock and key. Not a soul in the world is allowed to rest eyes on my journals, except for my partner, but even after I'm dead, I would entrust them to him to keep them safe. Sometimes when we have that privacy, that level of privacy in our sketchbook or our journal, it can relieve a lot of pressure that we might even subconsciously be harboring that stifles expressing ourselves fully or making it look pretty for others or only drawing certain things that others would find pleasing or wouldn't be too weirded out by. But in this case, how can you stifle yourself like that when your sketchbook should be your safe haven to grow and learn and explore and mess up, and your playground to indulge in things that you love or find interesting or fascinating or just really cool? It can still be fun to share our spreads because the mosaic of our spreads most of the time can end up turning out really cool. We can control what we share by only sharing little bits at a time, and that can be really helpful for making short form content like Reels or TikToks. But if you still want to share your whole sketchbook and do sketchbook tours, because those are very fun to do, I think a good idea might be to allow yourself to do so as you wish, because I mean, obviously there's nothing inherently wrong with that. If you want to share your sketchbook, go ahead and do it. Everybody's comfort level is different. So what you could do is you could allow yourself to cover up some things that you just want to remain secret, so that subconsciously you always feel safe working in your sketchbook. Like subconsciously you always know that I know that this is going to be shared, but I can control how much of it will be seen. And that mindset really should help prevent any inhibitions from even inadvertently popping up and preventing you from properly growing and learning and using your sketchbook to its fullest and how you really want to use it. You can practice and practice to your heart's content and not be ashamed if it doesn't look good right away or it just looks bad, or if you might be drawing things wrong for a while, because no one's going to judge you for it if you're the only one seeing it. And you shouldn't judge yourself either. You're learning. That tip has honestly really helped me as well. I know for myself, I used to post sketchbook tours publicly way back in the day, but I didn't do it for very long. And the reason why is because to me, it always felt too vulnerable for my comfort level. Those were always just the videos that I always procrastinated uploading the most, or I would rewatch them and cringe at the most, just being reminded how public these pages of my normally private sketchbooks have become. And it definitely influenced the way I used to use my sketchbook too. I definitely used to fill my sketchbooks in a way that would be pleasing for others to look at, because I knew eventually they were going to be seen. So very much I think I stifled my creative process in that way, because no matter what I did and no matter how much I tried to push that thought out of my head, I always knew, like, people are going to see this, so either I better try to make it look good, or I can only draw certain things that people would find interesting, or I would steer away from other things that I would have otherwise loved to draw or loved to learn to draw, but it might not be as pretty on the sketchbook or comfortable for the masses to see. But for me, ever since I decided to, thus forward, upload sketchbook tours only to Patreon, it honestly lifted that mental burden for me a lot. I feel a lot freer and more active in my sketchbooks too. And the difference is, even though I'm still ultimately making a video and sharing it, it's just different. It's to a way smaller audience, and an audience that already likes my art too and is least likely to hate or judge. But that's the solution that I've personally found that works best for me. If that might work for you too, then go ahead and try that if you have a private platform like that. Or just share your sketchbooks in full to a close group of friends, like in a Discord channel or something. And that way you can still get the pleasure of sharing your beautiful sketchbook, but you also get to keep it mostly private at the same time. So it's a win-win. And again, you can always still choose what you feel comfortable sharing, even to a smaller audience. Anyway, that's all the tips I have for today. I hope you found them helpful. I guess now we can talk about the character I'm drawing right now. This is the character in my profile picture of most of my platforms. Her name is Nike. She's a red fox, and she is an aspiring baker. Her story goes that she lives in a big city with her dream job, but then she suddenly loses that dream job. And with no other options, she ends up staying in her late grandfather's cabin in an old town that she used to visit every summer in her childhood. While she's staying there, she discovers her late grandfather's old recipe book, because he was a famous baker in town, but not really beyond town. His notoriety mostly stayed within the confines of the village, but he always talked about wanting to open a bakery, but he never got the chance to before he passed. So when Nike discovers his old recipe book, she decides to sort of continue on that dream, because he made such wonderful things and she wants to share them with the world. But she soon finds out that a lot of the ingredients in these recipes are not things that you can find at the normal grocery store, and instead are things that can only be found within the forbidden forest that surrounds the village. And when she tries to enter the forest, there is a guardian of that forest that is, his intention is to keep the villagers in the village and whatever is in the forest. So that kind of obstacle presents itself early on. So how else is she supposed to carry on her grandfather's legacy without these ingredients that can only be found in the forest? Well, that's something you'll have to find out, I guess. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more of my art, please consider subscribing to this channel or visiting me on my other social medias listed below. If you'd like the privilege of seeing every ugly detail of my sketchbooks in depth, as well as plenty of other art and comic related and general world building and original character content, please consider supporting me on Patreon. I hope the tips I had today were helpful or motivating to you. All the best in your art journey. Please keep drawing and all that. Okay, thank you again. Bye!